Hello and welcome to Expected Own Goals. Guess where we're at edition. I'm your host, Eric Morgan.
I'm Evan Davis, coming to you live from PayPal Park in San Jose, California. We are in the stands watching the Washington Spirit begin their final training for the NWSL Championship game on Saturday.
Which is funny because are they really training? They're kind of just stretching.
Yeah.
This is the part where they show us absolutely nothing.
Yeah, this is what they let us see, which is how they stay loose. But let's preview the Washington side of things for tomorrow. We mentioned in our semifinal recaps that the three projection models that we look at to determine the probabilities of a team winning a game make Washington possibly underdogs, and then one model gives them a coin flips chance. And the thing that I've been kind of struggling with ever since we ran these numbers is that is not what my gut or what I thought the data would tell me.
I suppose when the models they're still close.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not as though it's a 65, 35 split. It's, 56, 57% in Gotham's favor in a couple models.
Yeah. And so when I read that as a pure coin flip, even though it is not technically a pure coin flip.
Yeah.
It feels that way. And then I think when you think about like what each team has available to them, which is largely healthy squads, and the relative talent of both rosters, it's close. And there's a reason a lot of these games have been really tight, really unpleasant, for being perfectly honest, affairs. Two of the most electric teams in the league sometimes come together and play what can be described as a attritional game.
The two games they've played against each other this year, one was a 3-0 drubbing from Gotham, but was very much affected by
Game State.
And so Washington racked up a ton of XG, but that was because they were working from a deficit pretty early. And then a 0-0 draw in the second half of the season where Washington probably had a little bit of the XG edge, but it wasn't exactly a blowout. And when you look at sort of the season-long performances of each of these squads, it's difficult to draw a lot of conclusive information just because they've dealt with so many injuries, as we've talked about all year. So the version of Washington that maybe struggled defensively and were keeping themselves afloat from March to June is not the same squad since the end of the international break in August. Trinity Rodman will be available somehow, maybe not to start, but she'll be available.
Let's just say I'm skeptical of the amount of availability she's going to have tomorrow. I think
I'm not saying that she's probably going to be in the starting 11. I just think that there will be minutes for her, especially if Washington need them.
Adrian Gonzalez, who is currently right there having a passing drill with some of his coaches, which lets you know the seriousness of this practice session. Adrian Gonzalez yesterday described the way he likes to play as protagonist forward football, and I think that probably is what Washington will attempt to do in this game. I think every way in which they can get at Gotham is pretty much defined by the quality of their on-ball players, particularly in the middle of the park, but also what they can do out wide with Rose Kouassi and how they can break things down from there. So from a tactical perspective, I really expect Washington to try to stretch the field as opposed to what they did against Portland, which was to crowd out.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a worthy test to see if Kouassi, and whether it's Rodman or it's Sofia Cantore, how much they can penetrate Gotham's pressing structure. Because the way that Gotham likes to use, whether it's Bernina or Mandy Freeman and Lily Reel out wide, is to try and pin a team back. But we saw just how badly Portland failed at that against Washington. Does Gotham have better fullbacks than the Thorns? Yeah. But that's also maybe where you should be paying attention tomorrow, to see if Kouassi and either Rodman or Cantore can actually gain an advantage in those channels.
Some delightful little dancing going on between, it looks like Tara McKeown and Lacey Santos, and oh my God.
Yeah.
Again, this is a really intense pregame before a final training. Guys, I hope you see all the tactics you'd hope to see in exactly this moment. When it's all said and done, this game feels super close to me. I suppose the matchups I'm most curious about are how Santos and Bethune deal with Jalen Howell.
And how much Amoros wants to keep Howell deep, basically adding a third center back to the formation, which, given the way that Bethune and Santos and then Gift Monday like to attack, those central channels are going to be a real danger for any team that Washington would be facing.
Mm-hmm.
So using how deeper lined up with Carter and Sonnet might give Santos and Bethune a little bit of trouble.
I think the drill we were promised appears to be a walk. As we've been talking to other people this week, sort of just taking a sample, I think most people are expecting a tight and close affair. Looking at the models, my gut going into this was that Washington is the better team.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about all the weapons that Gotham actually have, and it gets closer.
Especially in midfield, there seems to be like for like on each side. Like if you have Hal Hirschfeld, they have Jalen Howe. If you have Croy Bethune and Lacey Santos to create a vroom vroom double 10, well, they've got Rose Lavelle and JT Shaw.
Yeah.
And so that almost feels like those central areas could just get bogged down in attrition because there is no discernible talent advantage or tactical edge. Both teams are kind of trying to do the same thing, which is gain a foothold on the ball, but also like be aggressive and be front foot. So when that happens, especially when teams, if you take a step back, are of relatively equivalent strength, we've been saying it a lot, both in the playoffs and in the regular season, like those games can be kind of not all that fun to watch. Like, is it going to be as bad as Gotham, Orlando? I doubt that, but this is a final. And so also just the nature of it being a final means everyone's kind of thinking more conservatively than they would in other contexts.
This may be a connoisseur's game a la 1990s Serie A, where we are just watching two very technically astute teams not give each other a goddamn inch. That is a final that I personally, and I suspect people who are hardcore enough to listen to this, are into.
Yeah, if you want to be slightly pessimistic as a Washington fan, you could maybe say that given the ways that their backline has cycled in and out with just kind of newly discovering or rediscovering Esme Morgan as a fullback, like, can Washington stay tight and organized when Esther is probably going to be 90 minutes match fit?
Yeah.
When Purse and Gabby Portillo are both probably going to be available. And kind of, again, looking to do what Cantore and Kouassi are going to try and do on the other side.
Yeah.
You know, it's something to pay attention to.
A couple sort of funny little notes, and one, I think, on Washington's defensive play. We talked to Tara Communication yesterday. We asked her about the sort of the Tara the Explorer phenomena this year. And one of the things she talked about is just sort of having faith that people are filling her position as she moves forward. And I think you could say over the course of the season, we've actually seen Washington evolve in that way, from holes that used to exist defensively to really being closed as they've learned to play with each other. McKeown was doing that with Bernal, who was new to her earlier this year. As this season has gone on, I think people have figured out how to play around her. And frankly, her numbers have gone up. And her passing efficiency has gotten better as the season has worn on. And it has also been reflected in the collective defense as people fill in for her.
And that could be a tactical rub that Gonzalez uses to gain numerical advantages in midfield and also to try and stretch players out of position by having McKeown step in and be a progressive option in the middle third. I'm sure Gotham is scouting for that, but the way that McKeown often moves when she has the ball can be unpredictable. And if you're comfortable with the way that like Hirschfeld and one of your fullbacks can like cover that space and you don't feel like you're going to get exposed, maybe Washington finds a wrinkle there, especially in the center of the park.
Yeah, I think that that's correct. I also think that one of the things that Washington can exploit with forward movement from the back is that Gotham, for all of its quality, is not the most athletic attacking team going forward. They don't have the afterburner level player that Washington has.
Right.
They are much more win the ball and then slow things down. We have often criticized that. I think our criticisms have been valid, but also we're talking about an attack that has done enough to get themselves here. Just barely, but enough is enough.
Coming up after the break, we will be talking about Gotham's prospects in the NWSL Championship. Stay with us.
Part 2.
So let's talk about Gotham as we watch them getting warmed up on the field here.
First off, looks like they're actually practicing, unlike the Spirit, who showed us absolutely nothing.
Yeah, we're getting some rondos, getting some cones marked out.
Nothing that you would learn tactically, but at least,
it's there.
A reasonable facsimile of what a practice might actually entail.
As we said in the Washington segment, they're pretty evenly matched up position for position all over the field.
Sort of shockingly so.
But this isn't the same team that even faced Gotham to a 0-0 draw in the second half of the year. There's Shaw, Esther's now fully fit, which we only saw glimpses of in the playoffs. So where can Gotham find a wrinkle here?
Given that both of these teams like to play a little bit on the front foot and often with a higher or high-ish line, I think the question is, can Gotham use what is generally speaking a lack of top-end pace in the attack to get in behind a Washington team that might provide some space over the top? And are they willing to sort of overload and take the risks in attack to compromise their defensive positioning in search of a goal? And I think a lot of those answers are not clear.
Not clear, but I also think maybe that speaks to why in my gut, I still feel like Washington might have an edge here. There is not a lot of desire to get that level of proactivity going on Gotham's side. And
for two protagonist concerned teams, yes, I agree.
Yes, Gotham's much more comfortable.
Guys, that's a whistle. That's a real practice.
Gotham is a lot less concerned about trying to make some sort of risky attacking effort once they get into the final third. This is a subject that we have been drilling basically since we started the show. And we're sussing out what kind of a manager Juan Carlos Amaros wanted to be and how he wanted Gotham to play. If there is a weakness that Gotham could exploit, it's the back line, but just are they going to have the stomach for it? And on the other side of it, I think Washington will be very comfortable trying to get in Gotham's face, especially if they feel like Gotham's just trying to slow pace down, trying to create some control.
I just don't see a lot of daylight between these two very good clubs that can deal with each other's best qualities.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not a bad exercise to try to do a combined 11 here, because I think that really illuminates sort of where the advantages and disadvantages are. So Aubrey Kingsbury versus Ann Katrinberger. That's a push for me.
The central defensive cores of Emily Sonnet and Jess Carter versus Rebe Bernal and McKeown. Maybe you say you have a bit more progressive options from the back with McKeown, but conversely, I think you have much more steady and predictable positional discipline from Sonnet and Carter.
It's a game of trade-offs there. At fullback, boy, first off, it depends on whether Washington run out the lineup or the formation that they've been running out of late, where you have Rosamund Kwasi actually playing sort of a wing back, which is an incredibly dangerous thing. Certainly Gotham have no answer for that. Fullback, a position that feels pretty level here. Lily Reel, Rookie of the Year. Esme Morgan, bizarrely, they sort of occupy the same sort of hybrid left back, center back quality.
Yeah.
Again, mirror images here.
And defensive midfield, Hirschfeld versus Howell. Boom, that's a push too.
Again, shockingly similar types of defensive midfielder there too.
Yeah, not interested in progression, happy to be single pivots if required.
I think maybe that's the first time that I go, maybe advantage Jalen Howell just given the season that she's put together. But it's close.
Yeah. And then Santos and Bethune versus Lavelle and Shaw. Where are you? Where are you getting separation? And in fact, I think throughout this conversation that we're having at training and sitting with really just what the depths of these starting 11s are is making me feel less confident in that initial gut reaction.
Of Washington?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe this is where the model is as we think about these as individuals, maybe this is where we see the gap closing.
Yeah, and also recency bias that Washington tore Portland apart and Gotham relied on a single moment of magic to be able to avoid extra time against Orlando.
I also think it's worth stating Portland, God love you, but a worse team than Gotham has played in either of their two playoff games. The path here has been significantly harder for Gotham. Let's continue on up in attack. First off, it's a question of availability.
You have Midge Purse, Gabi Portillo, and Esther versus Gift Monday, Rose Kwasi, and some combination of Sofia Cantore and
possibly Trinity Rodman.
And we've already heard that Rodman is going to be available. We just don't know for how long.
Yeah, the over underlines 30 minutes, 40 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And again, maybe that's going to be game state influenced. So Yeah, I mean, I think it's matchups now. Like, if there
By the way,
are...
I think that's where I say slight advantage Washington. As good as Esther was, she's slowed down a fair amount in the second half of the season, and there was some finishing over performance to begin the season. And Gif Monday, on the other hand, has played fewer minutes than we thought, but has been so effective in
And
those
there
minutes.
is a level of, like, penetrativeness that the Washington forward line is going to try and force the Gotham back line into decision making.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, is Esther going to do that? Is Gabi going to do that? I don't know. And then, you know, Washington's wingers versus Gotham's fullbacks. Gotham defensively, I think, off the ball, they've kept structure and shape and denied space without having to make defensive interventions. But, like, Bruninia can get rattled. And if you make her try and put in a tackle, you can find space there.
Mm-hmm.
And what's Rosamund Kwasi's job going to be if she's on the left, or what is Cantore's job going to be if she's on the left? It's just to try and unnerve Bruninia and find seams.
Yeah, I think I'd probably, just with the Trinity Rodman factor, shade the Washington bench ever so slightly, just in terms of like best weapon off the bench is, and then, you know, even 80% to Trinity Rodman is probably still the answer there.
Right.
And then you start thinking about technical aspects of the game. It's like, who would I rather have as my primary set piece taker? Well, again, real close.
Lacey Santos versus Jaden Shaw or Rose Lavelle.
I was just an hour ago out here watching Lacey Santos ping free kick after free kick with Grant from Into the Channel, who described her shots, ones that she missed, when they hit the back advertising boards as shotgun blasts. I think that is not unfair. And then you have Jaden Shaw, who's coming off converting a low XG, but very good free kick. And you have Rose Lavelle, which gives you a left-footed option that is also deadly. So yeah, it's real tough.
So final predictions here.
I've been saying this all week, and I've sort of been saying it cynically, but I mean it from the bottom of my goddamn heart. It's 0-0 on penalties.
That's tragic.
By the way, I say this, I would never place a bet on 0-0 to penalties. You'd have to give me really good odds on that to confirm. I don't have like a strong gut. What about you?
I think I'm going to go back to first principles and say 1-0 Washington in extra time. I think it's going to be a real slog, but your point about their depth, especially if it's Rodman who's coming off the bench as a game changer.
Yeah, Pain Cave Queen, Trinity Rodman.
Yeah, who
famous for scoring extra time goals.
No one knows and loves the Pain Cave maybe more than Trinity Rodman. So I think that could be the edge, is just a little bit of extra bench depth that can absorb 120 minutes more successfully than Gotham can. But it is that close.
Yeah.
So
I think that's right. Just as a closing thought here, whoever wins this game, where do they sort of stand against all-time champions in this league? Where would you place the winner of this game?
I'd say I'd probably place them middle of the pack. I don't think they're as weak a champion as like 2021 Washington was, or, you know,
2023 Gotham, maybe.
Or maybe even 2023 Gotham, or, 2013 Portland, maybe. But are they upper echelon in dominance like 2024 Orlando or 2022 Portland, or the Western New York / North Carolina Courage runs in the late 2010s? I don't know if I'd quite put them in that category, whoever it is.
This feels like a game between a Washington team, and we said this last year, that still seems to be on the upswing. And I think that's true. Like, I will not be surprised if next year's Washington Spirit is a yet better team. And then a team that has now sort of been revitalized with the addition of Jaden Shaw. Like, their timeline looks different than it did pre that trade. So these might be two teams on the upswing, or like that might put together more solid seasons next year. Yeah, I'm pretty middle of the road on this.
I think most importantly, in terms of off-field stuff, you really hope for a tightly contested and dramatic game on Saturday, just to make sure that, like, finally this rivalry becomes a thing. So we don't have to keep talking about how there's one moment where the rivalry between Washington and Gotham really is sparking to life.
Yeah.
A final should be the thing that finally cements that.
Yeah, totally. Or at least until, Philly gets a team and then everybody can have mutual enemies.
All bets are off. In the meantime, we will be at the game here at PayPal tomorrow. soaking in all the action and hopefully capturing some very cool sights and sounds from there. I've been putting all of our Patreon content, taking it out behind the paywall, putting it on main feed this month. If you're enjoying that, we hope that you consider subscribing. Click the link in the show notes. $6 a month gets you all of those bonus episodes as well as the main feed completely ad-free. And I think you'd be a fool not to partake of such, content delights.
Enjoy the final, guys.
Bye.
Bye.